The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guests and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of S4, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast or reproduction of this broadcast or podcast without express written consent of S4 is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised.
Because we don't understand how life formed, it is difficult to estimate this probability. The likelihood of a complex molecule like DNA being created by random collisions of atoms in a primordial ocean is fantastically small. In an infinite universe, it would happen in some places, but they would be very far apart. If we want to find advanced intelligent life, our best bet is to listen for radio signals.
Look up to the stars and the forest that surround. Do you see them? Do you hear them? Are they there? SpacedOutRadio.com presents S4 with Forest Moon Paranormal's Eric Cooper and friends. Also, take the time to join the Forest Moon Paranormal Facebook group.
I knew I should have made a left turn in Albuquerque.
Conspiracy, Area 51, Dogman, Ghosts, Cover-Ups, UFOs. The hidden will reveal itself.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go live on S4 with Eric Cooper.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to S4 with Eric Cooper, broadcasting live from the beautiful mountains of Concrete, Washington. Tonight we are talking disclosure. Has it happened, or will it happen? On our panel tonight we have Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, R. Keith Andrews, our astrologer and alien specialist. Tessa Nicole Thomas Peterson will hopefully join us here shortly, a little while. She's a little bit busy at the moment, but hopefully we'll be able to get her on. Myself, Corey Reese, and your host, Forest Moon Paranormal's own, Mr. Eric Cooper.
Hey, good evening, S4ians. It's always outstanding to have you here tonight. So we're coming to you live from the mountains of Concrete, Washington, and if you're local, tomorrow is our monthly training for the team. Everyone's invited. Tomorrow is actually going to be training on UFO investigation and alien abduction at our own Annie's Pizza at 2 p.m. So don't miss it. It's going to be awesome. And then on the 27th, we have our joint team meeting. As always, going to be cool. So tonight, you know, I had the schedule set up for S4 for the year, And I was talking to Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and he's like, oh, no. Dude, you've got to have disclosure in January because things are heating up, things are going fast, and it's going to break. So I changed the schedule, and, of course, tonight we're talking disclosure. And is it heating up, or is it just another pipe dream? I don't see it as a pipe dream personally because I think disclosure, and Markham agrees with me that, disclosure honestly happened in the 50s with the UFO slap over the White House. And what do you want with disclosure? I mean, really, do you want Trump to come out on TV and say, hey, aliens are here and there's UFOs in the sky? Is that what it's going to take? Because it ain't going to happen. Do we think Tom DeLonge and his little group is going to, all of a sudden break something jaw-dropping? I don't think that's going to happen either. And then you've got Bigelow. Now, we're going to talk a lot about Bigelow tonight because he's got a big piece to the puzzle. And I'm sorry, but Stephen Greer didn't start the Disclosure Project. He started it, don't get me wrong, he did start the Disclosure Project, but it didn't go far. Because you got Stephen Greer, and he made the aliens look out to be the good guys. And that's what's funny, because you got Tom DeLonge saying all the aliens are the bad guys. We got to shoot them down before anything happens. And you got to walk in the middle, because there's good aliens, there's bad aliens. We all know that. If you listen to this show, if you've been listening to this show enough, you know that. We talk about them all the time. So anyway, how's everyone doing tonight?
Doing fine.
Yeah, great, thanks.
So what do y'all think? Do you think there's going to be disclosure?
Hey, just
I
a
think there's already been disclosure.
Just a quick heads up. I think we're going to have Dave Scott come in.
Oh, outstanding.
Dave who?
Hey,
Who's that?
nice.
That's somebody we should know.
Oh. I'm going to say a quote real quick while Corey's getting Dave in. So this is a quote from Bigelow. And just to give you a little bit of idea who Bigelow is, Bigelow quotes in the New York Times in 2010, I've been a researcher and student of UFOs for many, many years. Anybody that does research, if people bother to do quality research, comes away absolutely convinced. You don't have to have a personal encounter. People have been killed. People have been hurt. It's more than observational kind of data. Now, Robert Bigelow, for those that don't follow disclosure, is the owner of Bigelow Industries. He's also correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if he still is, but at one point he was the only source that the government sent UFO sighting reports to, MUFON included. Is he still the sole guy that takes all reports? Or do you guys know?
If I can hop on. Am I on?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on.
Oh, hey guys. Sorry, I've just been really geeked up on this, and when I saw the topic tonight, I actually wanted to hop on.
Of course.
One of the things that I learned, and I've been really looking into Robert Bigelow recently, was the fact that when he was involved with MUFON, he donated just over $650,000 to bail MUFON out of their financial issues. And one of the things that went along with that was he got all of the top interviews and information from people who had alien contact or abductions. He wasn't personally involved or caring about some UFO sighting over someone's farm in the middle of Delaware. That didn't bother him. He wanted the top-notch stories of real ET contact. And that's what MUFON agreed to pay him. Now, MUFON took a lot of heat from both people who were experiencers and people from the inside. One in particular named James Carrion, who used to be their international director, who resigned over the fact that MUFON's confidentiality agreement with its experiencers was now null and void since Bigelow had entered the picture. So this guy is tapped in. I also got a form earlier this week from Butch Witkowski from the FAA that states if any pilots in the United States have a UFO sighting, they are to call BASS, which is Bigelow Aerospace Space Systems. So this guy...
To me,
go ahead.
To me, that's disturbing. Why give one individual that much control?
Oh, I'm going to take this a step further for you, Eric, if you don't mind.
Good. Yeah, of course. You're the one in the know right now. I mean, I've read the articles that you sent me and the videos that you sent me, but I know you get information probably damn near daily.
In 2009, okay, he bought the domain names from a gentleman up here north of me in British Columbia named Brian Vike. Brian Vike had one of the most successful UFO reporting channels next to MUFON. He paid, according to record, $800 for Brian's domain names because Brian was stepping down due to the fact of health conditions. What we don't know is what happened with Brian's original reports. What we do know is that on the hbccufo.org website, it says all reports go to BASS, which is Bigelow Aerospace. All right? And that they are proud to continue the confidentiality of the reports. Now, here's my issue with this being Canadian. Okay? This is a Canadian website that was run by a Canadian. And remember the story I told you a few months ago about the RCMP up here, when they have a UFO story, they have to report it to head office in Ontario, which then sends it straight to NORAD. Here's my question, though. Bigelow has been buying up a lot of foreign UFO websites. All right? This is what I'm just learned today. And my question is, what does a billionaire U.S. government contractor, whom we know from the release and the New York Times story, has some sort of alien element sitting in one of his warehouses in Las Vegas, buying up international alien contact and UFO stories? What is he doing with the information?
That would be my question. And to go further with that, what's he doing with experiences reports? What does he want with abductees?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Because, going back to the article, John Mack sold out how many reports of abductions?
Money has talked, my friends. Now, I talked to one of my sources about Brian Vike tonight. Now, the report that I read was that he had sold the domain names to Bigelow for $800. My source said, no. The number that this person was hearing was more like $100,000. Now, here's the interesting part. 2 years ago, as I was searching for a Canadian UFO researcher to have on Spaced Out Radio, I got in touch with Brian Vike. He took my phone call. And he said, no, due to health reasons, I'm just not into it anymore. I'm not doing it. I apologize. It just doesn't interest me anymore. I got to take care of myself. Hope you understand. Good luck with your show. And now I'm finding out, well, maybe he was silenced because of a confidentiality agreement he has with Bigelow Industries.
Yeah. And, based on the fact that Forest Moon Paranormal works with abductees all the time, I find that disturbing. I'll never sell out. I don't give a damn if you offer me $1 million. I'm not selling out to clients. And it disturbs me that $100,000 would talk a guy to sell a domain. Health or not, I'm sure somebody in Canada would have stepped up to take over.
Yeah, but you got to realize up here it's a different bird than it is down south. Okay, up here people do not. UFOs aren't popular up here. Okay, the experience isn't popular. I tried to get a hold of. I talked to 2 reporters on Thursday saying, "Hey, I may have a story here that you might want to check." I basically got laughed off the phone. Even when I gave them my credentials that said, "Look, I'm a reporter. I'm a journalist, just like you are. And you're blowing me off? Come on." This is how the Canadian public reacts to this. A good friend of mine, who was one of them, said, "No, I don't see a story there." I said, "How do you not see a story that an American who is billionaire who is tied to the New York Times article, who apparently has alien artifacts or some sort of alien artifacts or resources in his facility, is buying up Canadian experiences?" And they just don't see it. They don't want to see it up here. So the Canadian public is absolutely in the dark about where their information is going. And that information highway right now is going through Bigelow Aerospace, which means the chances that the United States government has information on Canadian experiencers, their phone numbers, their name, their addresses, their email addresses, what happened to them. No wonder when Keith comes on my show or your show, he's saying, "Yeah, I've been visited by the CIA," or we've had Canadian people say, "Yeah, I've been in my labs. I've been visited by Men in Black." Well, how did that happen? And is the Canadian government knowing that this is going on? This is potentially a big story, and everything that I have found out recently, whether it's Tom DeLonge, whether it's the U.S. government, whether it's the New York Times story, George Knapp, whoever, it all filters through Robert Bigelow.
So I've got a question for you, Dave, and I asked this in the beginning of the show before you got on. But what do you think Bigelow's opinion of Tom DeLonge is?
Well, if you listen to our show the other night with John Alexander, who is one of Bigelow's right-hand men at the Skinwalker Ranch, Alexander basically said that DeLonge's an idiot. DeLonge is a nobody in this field. And if you look at the To the Stars campaign, nothing is about DeLonge anymore. Grant Cameron has noticed a major movement on DeLonge's Twitter account. He monitors DeLonge's Twitter account daily. DeLonge will post something about UFOs, and within an hour to 2 hours, he'll remove it. He removes the post.
Yeah.
So I think what's happening here is DeLonge got his money from the government in the deal. The SEC papers prove that. Tim Doyle brought that one out from UFO Seekers, saying that he got the first 700,000 of the first $1 million, which takes him out of debt. Okay, from not out of his own pocket. I think what happens now is they're going to say, "Yeah, we'll keep Tom playing. We'll keep him playing." But really, if you look at everything over the last month, everything has shifted from Tom DeLonge over to Luis Elizondo. DeLonge's name hasn't popped up at all in any interviews. We see Chris Mellon out there. We see other people from the To the Stars campaign. Nothing with Tom DeLonge since the Joe Rogan interview.
Intriguing situation, isn't it?
Yeah, and I have a theory, guys, I have a theory about that. Okay, and this is just my theory. There's no information on this, but I have a theory on this that DeLonge's lips are too loose, that they cannot trust him to say the right things. And
Right.
that's why.
And I would agree. But I mean, Bigelow's been doing this since the 80s, at least since the 80s.
Yeah.
So do you think Tom DeLonge was just maybe?
They needed they needed someone who could come in there, all right, and talk to the public, especially the younger generation. This is what my source said today to me, and it made a lot of sense, okay? They do not care about the people in their 30s, the people in their 40s, the people in their 50s or 60s. So that pretty much categorizes the majority of all of us, not only who are on the air, but who are listening as well. All right? What they care about, Coop, is your children, my children. Because if you notice, they are not talking about aliens. They have done a great job in absolutely pushing to the side aliens. Their word on UFOs is, we don't know what they are. We don't know if they're ours, if they're the Russians, the Chinese, nothing. They don't know. All right? So, here's the other point. The reason why they are doing that, according to my source, is because we're the dying off generation. They don't care about us. So by the time your children are our age, in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, they will be used to UFOs. Now what they do with our grandchildren or our great-grandchildren is now they start bringing in aliens. Aliens are good. Aliens are friendly. Aliens are a part of us. Look, here they are. So it's all part of the long-term disclosure plan by covering up the past and bringing it in steps. It has nothing to do with DeLonge, all right, or the To the Stars campaign or anything.
Look, I've said before, I think that DeLonge is basically a pawn. I think he's just being used, and I think eventually he's going to probably be a patsy for something, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it makes you wonder if, I know you've kind of answered that, Dave, but I wonder if DeLonge was kind of a smokescreen to get everyone's attention on him while Bigelow was doing something big behind the scenes.
Very well. Could very well be. Can I just answer a question? Because Don in the chat room says, Dave, if someone offered you millions of dollars, would you take it? Absolutely. I'd walk away from the field tomorrow. Absolutely, I would. And the reason why is that millions of dollars usually has a caveat, which means if you speak, you're dead. Or if they don't come get you, what they do is they torture you by getting your family and your family's family, kind of like the way North Korea punishes 3 generations worth for one crime. Right? Like, we are playing in a field here, ladies and gentlemen, that is absolutely scary. And if somebody paid me, say, $5 million to shut up, and I'm thinking, okay, $5 million, I could take care of my parents, I could take care of my kids' education, would I walk away? Probably. Absolutely. Now, if somebody offered me $100,000 for my files or what I know, no. No. Millions? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I can be bought. I know that may sound like a real crappy thing to talk about, right? But we're talking about, can you take care of your family and protect your family? And that's the way they're getting people. That's the way they're getting people, right? Especially those on the inside in the know. That's how they're keeping them quiet. That's why we're not having people speak out about Bigelow, because his confidentiality agreements are so tight and so favoring him that if anybody opens their mouth, even on a deathbed confession, they're still hell to pay for the rest of the family. And that's how ugly this gets.
Now, do we know if he's bought out Newfork?
I don't know. And that's the honest answer. It wouldn't surprise me but he has got his fingers dabbled in absolutely everything. Don's follow-up is, so does that change the thought of most in the field? I think if you're talking millions, absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. Right?
It does, but yeah, like Markham's saying, he could retire on $1 million. I have to walk the line on that, because millions, yeah, sure, I could pay off, the mortgage on my house. I could, I'd be set for, my kids would be set for life. But I have an ethical stand to take on that, though, because I have thousands of clients, and I have a hard time.
But if they said,
I do. I have.
Coop, if they said to you, look, we'll give you $5 million, you walk away from the UFO stuff, okay? See, there's a difference between helping clients the way you are and somebody reporting in a UFO video where they've caught grays on tape in their backyard.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? You're not dealing with that, so it wouldn't affect you. All right? But
no, we're small potatoes when it comes. I mean, we're not even on their radar. Maybe we are with S4. I don't know, but as far as I know, we're not even on the radar. We're just going to keep doing what we do. We always will.
I just wanted to add in here that Trippin posted something up in the chat room here that Mr. Bigelow bought MUFON and its UFO information documentations. Looked for the total sum of $672,000 payable in monthly installments of $56,000 apiece for the product of MUFON.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, MUFON is, as of this time, no longer a viable thing for anybody to report to for an experience or a UFO sighting.
But we've known that for years, that MUFON was infiltrated. What we didn't know, or what nobody is focused on, is all of these subgroups, right? So now the big question for anybody out there is, who can you report to? Who do you report to investigate your claim besides Forrest Moon? Okay, when you type in, the unfortunate part about it is, when you type in UFO contact, you don't see Forrest Moon. You see MUFON, you see New Fork, you see other groups. Okay, how many of those are BAS infiltrated or government infiltrated? And this is absolutely mind-blowing to me right now on how many groups are in there. And I'll tell you, on Monday night when we have Tim Doyle back on the show, it's going to get real. And we're going to get into that. It's going to be very, very heavy. And it's something that, people who have any concern whatsoever for this field need to pay attention to what is going on, because this is a lot uglier than what I thought it was.
So Dennis has a question for you. So where does that put David McDonald, CEO of MUFON?
They keep doing what they're doing. Same as Jan Harsden. They keep doing what they're doing, collecting. Now, Bigelow got pissed off with MUFON and pulled the plug on that. Okay? So we don't know technically if he is still involved with MUFON or if they are getting any information. Or laundering any information from MUFON anymore. But I know I would not trust any information going to MUFON. I don't feel comfortable with that. Hey, can I read you something here, if you don't mind?
Sure.
I'm just going to upload it here. Give me 2 seconds here, guys, because I want you guys to read this or hear this.
That's fine. And because Dennis did a follow up. What about what about Davenport? And that's he's with New Fork. And we don't know if New Fork is sold out or not, Dennis. So,
I don't think so. I think from what I heard about Davenport was that they were in talks with Bigelow about it, but it didn't go through. That's what I'm hearing. Okay? And I'm sorry, it just triggered that when you mentioned Peter Davenport. All right.
Yeah,
So
that's too far.
This is from the FAA, okay? So the United States Federal Aviation, I forget what the agency, I think. In their book, 7-6-4, Unidentified Flying Object, in brackets, UFO report. Section A, persons wanting to report UFO/unexplained phenomena activity should contact a UFO/unexplained phenomena reporting data collection center such as Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, BASS, voice number or email, the National UFO Reporting Center, etc. B, if concern is expressed that life or property might be endangered, report the local activity to local law enforcement department. Air traffic controllers have the following guidance under FAA Order 7110.65, Section 9-8-1. Right? So the fact that Bigelow's name is in that book is... And MUFON's not even on here, guys. Bigelow is.
Right.
Right? To me...
Because Bigelow is the head of it all.
Exactly.
So basically what we have really now as a problem is that there needs to be some way for things like Forest Moon and stuff to be more readily available when a search is made for something like that, because that's what it's kind of down to now, is that really for the experiencer or the abductee, whatever it may be, or the sighting, the only ones that we know that we can basically trust to is a smaller, what Cooper called small potatoes, would be the smaller groups like us.
Well, and this is where it's going to be imperative, guys, for Forest Moon to get a website going up on that. You know what I'm saying?
We have a website. We just got it up 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
But here's the thing. If we poke our head up out of the hole, basically, it's good for the experiencer, but at the same time, it's going to put us on the radar. Experiencers find us, sometimes slower than others, but experiencers do find us through the means that we use. I'm happy with that. Because as it is, the team is burning out. Before we go, poking our head out of the hole, we need to be ready for the backlash, for the repercussions, for the slam of experiencers that come running to us. And, the more experiencers that come running to us, the more of a radar the government and Bigelow are going to have on Forest Moon. I don't want that yet. We're not ready for that.
Well, poking the head up, we need to make sure that it's just an ever so slight bump. Just enough so it's there, but not enough for them to notice too much.
Exactly. But I've always been under the belief that people find us when they're supposed to.
Yeah, and ultimately that is where things are going to get confusing for people. Is the fact that so many people rely outright on the net, and what they don't realize is the government has simply done what they did before, what they used to do by phone, they're now doing by the internet. So not going completely above board. I mean, understand the government knows you're there anyway. But you may well be right that they're not paying a lot of attention to it because of the fact that you're not right smack in the middle of everything.
I think the one we should be supporting, and I have means to do that as far as contacting him, is Peter Davenport. The ones that have not sold out are the ones we need to be reaching out to.
Okay, so Markham, are you still with us here?
Markham just posted that there's only been 98 cases reported to Davenport in 2018. That's slow.
Well, with him, though, that's what's on the site that he's actually had a chance to compile. because
Right,
last I knew he might have a volunteer or something, but mostly he gets them all in. He does everything on his own, last I heard. So there might be
he's
well over. That's just what he's managed to get compiled and actually get on his site right now. So God knows how many there really are. Right? I'm sure it'll update. By February it'll probably have updated something. But for 14 days, 2 weeks into the new year, that's not bad.
And if I remember right, Davenport's right here in Seattle. He's in Washington.
Yeah, I think he used to be.
Well, he's easy enough to reach out to. So I might just reach out to him, let him know we're here if he needs any backup. And that'll be the bump out of the hole, Corey.
I would I'd do a little research first. I would do some pretty close research first and make sure that there hasn't been some type of Bigelow contact on his end before we go doing that.
Right.
And that's easy with our paranormal lawyer, Michael W. Hall, who is very good friends with Davenport. But I mean, I'm at the conclusion, and it's funny. About 3 weeks ago, I had a conversation with Tim Doyle, and Tim was like, "Dave," he goes, "I'm not talking to anybody anymore." But he goes, "Besides Spaced Out Radio, I'm not doing any interviews. I'm declining them all. People have wanted to talk to me about the information I found. I'm not going there." He goes, "I just don't feel comfortable because I don't know who I can trust anymore." He goes, "Because everybody seems to be infiltrated, including members of the media."
Okay, so Dennis is also bringing up the reason he brought up Davenport is because Davenport's a regular on Coast to Coast. Which is also, if you remember right, a Bigelow start.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about that real
together.
quick? Actually, let's go back a few years, actually a lot of years, because for our listeners, I know a lot of them don't understand, Bigelow was actually involved with Bob Lazar back in the 80s, was it, Dave?
Yeah, around, after Lazar came out in 1989, with the story George Knapp did. Knapp got Lazar apparently in touch with Robert Bigelow. Together, they formed a company trying to figure out Element 115, which is what Lazar stated was what was needed for the reverse engineering of the UFOs that were at S4. Now, for me, learning this information about Lazar, to me, adds a little bit more credibility that, in fact, he was there and that he did work there. Because if Bigelow hired him for that, okay, to me, that states that even though the company didn't last long, the fact that they were working together on an Element 115 project tells me that there is validity, to Lazar working at S4.
Mm-hmm.
So, question for you, Dave. Have you ever had Davenport on your show?
Yes, I had him about a month ago with Michael W. Hall.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that one, unfortunately. How did that go? I mean,
it went very good. I mean, we talked mainly about disclosure, and we talked about a lot of things, right? And he is, I mean, I think there's a genuine concern, and even in the sources that I talk to right now, okay, in regards to the people who've been doing this the last 20, 30 years, nobody knows who to trust anymore. And that's the interesting part, is everybody right now, due to this disclosure movement that happened with the New York Times article, everybody's hackles are up and nobody is trusting anybody right now, right? Because you have the old crew who's been doing this forever, who finally is getting some information. Problem is, it's not all the information that they want, and these are stories they've been reporting for years, and you have the younger generation coming in here who are falling for all of the Tom DeLonge, Corey Good type jargon that is out there and believing every word of it. And this is where the field right now, I mean, it's like, when you walk in shallow water and you kick up the water goes all murky. That's where the UFO field is right now. And people who've been doing this for 25, 30 years are all of a sudden sitting back. They may not be shutting up by interviews, at least certain people like Grant Cameron. Okay, but for the most part, everybody is kind of just sitting back and watching this storm hit the field to see what it looks like once the mud clears.
You think that was deliberate?
Absolutely.
Try and divide and conquer instead of getting everybody on the same page and forcing more of a disclosure. Seems to me if they get the old guard, there's already tends to be a natural dislike between generations, and it sounds to me like somebody's really playing on that.
Yeah.
And trying to generate, make it to where there's factions.
So let's talk about the old school folks for a second, because where does Stanton Friedman fall into all this?
I haven't heard him talk about anything.
Well, it seems like some of the old school folks, back in '94 when I was first getting into this field, with Stanton Friedman, with David Jacobs, with some of the big names that were out there when I first got into the field, have gotten quiet. And now you hear, Bigelow all over the place, and Tom DeLonge as of last year in new faces, basically. Bigelow's not a new face, but he's popping up.
Yeah, but
and then you got Stephen.
But Coop,
and then you got Stephen Greer.
Coop, you could say that though about where's Richard Dolan in all of this? Where is Steve Bassett? Where are a lot of these people that have been going silent, right? Where's Nick Pope? You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of the regulars have been going absolutely silent on this. And, here's my theory, guys, and I said this on Spaced Out Radio the other night. I'm not sure if you caught it or not. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here's my theory. The best thing the government could have done, and what they are currently doing right now by denying media requests to those who are involved in this field, yet opening up media requests to all the major news outlets. Okay, we've seen Luis Elizondo on everything from CNN to Fox News to every major newspaper. Chris Mellon is doing the exact same thing. All right? And when you look at it, okay, all the mainstream media has brought this to the attention. That is the story of the last couple of weeks. I mean, when Tucker Carlson on Fox News, love him or hate him, and trust me, I'd like to, give that little weasel a shaking. When he is talking UFOs, there's something up. All right?
Yeah.
And the way I look at it is this, guys, and this is what we need to remember. If you catch any of the major newscasts who've been talking about this, they have not interviewed a soul in this field. Very rarely. Okay, very few have been interviewed. And here's my reasoning why, and this is just a theory, and you guys are more than welcome to debate it or add on to it or whatever. But here's my theory. The government knew that the mainstream media has treated the topic of UFOs like a redheaded stepchild for so long that when the information and the admittance finally came out, they didn't know who to talk to. So what they did was they said, well, you don't need to talk to anybody. We'll give you Luis Elizondo to speak with. And they were like, really? This is the DOD guy? We're going to get him. We're going to have him on the air. All right, great. Well, what do? Is they throw him a bunch of softball questions. Because the media who has not been studying, the mainstream media who has not been studying up on UFOs at all for the last 50 years, got caught with their pants down. So when the media gets caught with the pants down, the first thing they do, guys, is they start throwing softball questions. Softball questions means that what they are doing at that point is that, yes, we have the topic. Yes, we have the main person who's going to explain it to us, and we are good. Okay? They don't understand the aviary. They don't understand Skinwalker Ranch. They don't understand alien abduction. All right? This is why they're not asked the questions, about are aliens flying that ship? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I have a question, and I kind of want to go back to Davenport and your interview with him a little bit. Now, I know that, many of these other people who we've just been talking about here that have been doing some of these interviews now with larger media sources, they get asked a certain question, and they go, oh, well, I can't quite answer that because DeLong is notoriously guilty of that. Was there at any time during the interview with Davenport where you asked him, any questions that might have been a little bit harder, that he made it seem, acted, or stated anything of that type of thing?
Well, he did feel that it was a soft type of disclosure that came out, okay? He did feel that this was a very good step for ufology, giving people who have been experiencers validation. Okay. However, he did express caution because we don't know the full story. We don't know what the government knows. We need to wait for more information to come out. So the entire UFO field right now, who is looking at this, say, on a scientific type level, is saying, hold on a second here. We got to step back and let's see what else they got besides one grainy video from an FA-18. Yet, in dogfights in Vietnam, we were getting clear videos of F-4 Phantoms versus MiG-17. Right?
Well, another thing, probably the old guard are kind of keeping their head down because let's not forget it wasn't but a couple years ago that Jaime Maussan got that mummified child body and had some of the big names kind of convinced it was an ET, and there was some credibility that was lost over that. Whether they legitimately were endorsing Jaime Maussan or not, it was guilt by association. Yeah. So that might be why they're keeping their heads down, is they're thinking, oh God, now if we come out on this, we'll lose whatever credibility we got. And Nick Pope was one of those. The guy who wrote the UFO and the American guy. Those are a lot of the main guys that the voices for the UFO community that got, summed up in that Jaime Maussan scandal.
You know what, Preacher? I think that's a valid point, but I'm going to disagree with that. And the only reason why I'm going to disagree with that is if you look at the mainstream media, you talk to anybody in the mainstream media, they have no clue who Nick Pope is. They have no clue who Paul Hellyer is. They have no clue who Stanton Friedman, Richard Dolan, Stephen Bassett, Stephen Greer, Grant Cameron are. Very few in the mainstream media know these people. The mainstream media was caught with their pants down. That's why those guys were kept quiet. Now, for the remainder of them, why are they keeping quiet? I think it's more of a wait-and-see approach, because the one thing that I have learned on Consensus is nobody trusts DeLong. Nobody believes DeLong. Okay, everybody thinks that DeLong is a shill and a patsy for this movement to get the younger kids involved through Blink 182. And I think that's the reason why a lot of these people are shutting up. Maybe their own sources have been shut up, so that's why they're not talking. But I think the major blame on everything and the silence on it has to go to the mainstream media, who is refusing to interview anybody with any knowledge of this subject outside of Luis Elizondo. And the reason why is the mainstream media doesn't want to be caught with egg on their face with all these ufologists coming out in their minds, coming out of the woodwork saying, no, DeLong's an idiot. Or Elizondo is a government worker still on contract. Why does he have all of a sudden the power to talk about this? I mean, the Pentagon has already come out and said, we didn't release the video. And now there's supposed to be this panic about the FA-18 video on how it got out. Well, Elizondo was told he could release that. That's how it got out.
Well, hasn't that been basically that FA-18 footage? You know, that's been that's very controversial. I mean, it's not even a given that it's a legitimate, Pentagon release or not, that's even legitimate gun camera footage.
Very understandable.
There's a lot of people say it's not, that it's, a video game. So they're trying to find the true information from the disinformation on that clip is.
And I agree with you 100% on that. The problem that we have, though, brother, is the fact that the mainstream media who is running with that video, they are taking this topic ad hoc right now because they were caught with their pants down, and Bigelow, the To the Stars campaign, the United States government knew it, that they had them. They had the media, the mainstream media, exactly where they wanted them, so they could control the game and the press and how this story came out. Because if you look at it, nobody's really followed up on it. If anybody has followed up on it, it's been a bunch of columnists coming in saying, here we go with this UFO BS again. And sorry, I'm opening a Pepsi. And here we go with this UFO BS again. And, it's all crap. It's all BS, and we shouldn't, as a society, fall for it when there's no scientific proof. Gee.
But there really is. I mean, there's people that have been sentenced to the electric chair on less evidence than we have for the existence of UFOs.
Let me jump in here real quick, because Dennis has a good question. What are the chances that Bigelow is actually on our side, trying to build a massive UFO network to counter the governments?
Not at all.
I don't think so, because he's getting too much. I think he's too visible.
The government paid him. Here's the thought of a lot of ufologists, and nobody will go on record with this as of right now. Okay, the thought is during that $22 million that was allegedly put towards the field of ufology and studying UFOs, what a lot of people believed was that Robert Bigelow got a giant portion of that, and that was money that he used to buy up UFO files, UFO websites, and buy into MUFON and take care of MUFON's debt, okay, in order to get the files. All right? That is a big problem. When Bigelow is sitting there, which a lot of people believe, is sitting there with artifacts that are extraterrestrial. Now, we don't know if they're from a meteor. We do not know if it's from an alien or a UFO or whatever. We don't know. But when he is the key government contractor, when it comes to all of this stuff, you have to be careful. And so to say that he has it for the public, not at all. I don't agree with it. I think this is a selfish move by Bigelow. From what I have heard in regards to it, he has a personal purpose involved in this. I don't know how true the story is. I've only heard it from one source. All right. But if that's the case, it's a lot deeper than what we think. It's a lot deeper. And I highly recommend everybody to go to, if you haven't heard the episode yet, or if you did, replay it, go to our Thursday night show with John B. Alexander at youtube.com/spaced out radio. Listen to the last 2 hours of what John said. This was Robert Bigelow, one of Robert Bigelow's right-hand men. And apparently to a lot of people, he is still very, very involved in this field at around 80 years old. Okay? This guy... Go ahead.
Andy brings up a good point. Bigelow doesn't need money. So what's his motivation?
Well, to think about, here's another way to think about that. No, he doesn't need the money, but if he had the public's best interest in hand, and he has, honest to God, proof of extraterrestrial life or extraterrestrial technology, why not show it? Say, yeah, here it is. It came from such and such, and it's used for this. And all he's doing is hinting at that he might have some artifacts.
All right.
There's no proof.
Okay.
Still.
This is the story I heard. Okay, and I'm going to keep this very quiet. I mentioned a little bit about this on Spaced Out Radio, but this is what one of my sources who. I'm getting it secondhand information here, okay? So don't hold a gun to my head, okay, and say what it is, all right? But I'm going to give you the secondhand information that I got from a source I trust who knows people who've been very close to Bigelow, all right? The story that I have heard, and like I said, I don't know how much belief to put into this, is this. Robert Bigelow was not into UFOs. He was very much into real estate. His son was very much into the UFO phenomenon. His son in the 80s, whom Robert was very close with, committed suicide. All right?
Okay.
Now, somewhere in the study, okay, after his son's death, Robert decided to look, in order to remain close to his son, decided to look into this UFO phenomenon and started getting very intrigued with what he found. Now, this is where the story gets a little bit wacky, and I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying it's not. The answer that I have is I don't know, but this is just what I've been told, is apparently Bigelow in his studies over the last 25 years, 30 years, has been able to uncover the fact that apparently when you die, you get reincarnated in the future. So Bigelow, who is continually missing his son, is trying to find the technology and the experiences people are having in order to find out whether or not he can time travel to the future to find his son. That's what I've been told. Like I said, it sounds like a Hollywood movie. It sounds like a sci-fi thriller. It sounds way too out there. But from what I have learned from my source, who has talked to sources very close to Robert Bigelow, that's the reason why he's doing all of this, is to try and reconnect with his son in the future because he misses his boy.
The good news is...
Go ahead.
The good news is forward time travel is possible. Of course, he'll cease to exist, like all record will just stop of him when he gets the information. And then down the road, assuming he doesn't overshoot, and that will be the neat little problem, is, all information on him will cease to exist until he resurfaces, or more to the point, until time catches up.
I don't think Bigelow cares.
No. And with that, we're coming to the top of the hour. Corey's going to take us to our break, and we will carry on this conversation because this is intriguing, for sure. So go ahead, Corey. Take us to the break, and we'll carry this on.
Indeed, indeed. All right, when we come back from break, we will continue our discussion on UFO disclosure. Tonight on our panel, we have Eric Markham, our FMP scientist, our Keith Andrews, astrologer, and our alien specialist, and Dave Scott of Spaced Out Radio. Also myself and Eric Cooper of Forest Moon Paranormal. Join us every Saturday night at midnight Pacific Standard Time. You can find us on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. And now for you local listeners, you can catch our show Wednesdays on KSVU 90.1 on your FM dial from 10 a.m. till noon. Check out Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott Monday through Friday. Spaced Out Weekend with Joe Roop Saturdays, and Elizabeth Anglin on Cosmic Passport on Sundays, all at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Also check out The Fringe FM with shows like Lighting the Void with Joe Roop and a plethora of other good shows. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, and I want you to come on a nightly journey. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, every Monday through Friday, you can come hang out with me and the other space travelers. We have it all from Carl the Alien bouncing on by to those misfit gnomes causing havoc. It's 3 hours of fun and entertainment on those topics the mainstream really doesn't want to touch. Come get all paranormal with us at spacedoutradio.com, and together, my friends, along with our resident guitar god Bumblefoot, we own the night.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Would you like someone you can trust to look into it? We have just the place. The SOR Sightlines Report is the place for you to find answers. Whether it's Bigfoot, UFOs, Dogman, ghosts, aliens, or anything strange, the Sightlines Report will get you connected with one of our expert researchers to find out what's going on. All of your personal information is kept 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report, a place for you to find the answers you need. Only at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome to Spaced Out Saturdays with me, Dave Cruz from Beyond the Strange. Our weekly feature on spacedoutradio.com will take you around the world discussing everything from the paranormal to the latest conspiracies from the top guests in their fields. We won't leave any story uncovered. Spaced Out Saturdays at spacedoutradio.com starting 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed on tonight's show by tonight's hosts and guests are not necessarily those of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays, Spaced Out Sundays, or SpacedOutRadio.com. Listener discretion is advised. And now back for hour number 2, we have Corey Ruiz, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, and S4. You can find Forest Moon Paranormal on Facebook. And for more information on S4, visit SpacedOutRadio.com. And now, here's Eric Cooper and Corey Ruiz.
All right, welcome back, everybody. And for those of you just joining us tonight, we are discussing UFO disclosure and if it's happened or not. On our panel tonight, we have Eric Markham, R. Keith Andrews, and Dave Scott. Welcome back, everyone.
Glad to be here.
Well, thanks. Nice being here. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for letting me butt in.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, you're actually the resident. You know more than anybody about the disclosure, so you're perfect for tonight.
Thank you, buddy.
So before we went to break, I actually had wanted to get in, introduce, butt back in basically, but topic was good, and I didn't want to interrupt it. But to a point that I had asked the question earlier was more of looking for the evidence if somebody one of these bigger guys has been either influenced by government or bought off or something is looking at the answers or the lack of answers that they may give. And that's the reason why I had asked the question if Davenport had been avoiding any questions specifically and or had said something to the fact that he couldn't answer that for some particular reason. Because it seems to me that evidentiary-wise, you can usually tell when somebody has had that type of thing happen with them. Prime example, if you want to look at it, is DeLong. Very blatantly on interviews has said, no, I can't talk about this because, So that's kind of the point that I was getting at, was looking for that evidence, if that type of thing has happened.
Still with us, Dave?
Yeah, I'm just thinking. Sorry, guys. I was
okay.
Jumped on while I was thinking. Corey, everything is so up in the air right now that I don't think a lot of people are knowing whether they are coming or going. Okay, I think there's so much speculation going on right now with everything that it's very difficult for anyone to really come through with any hardcore knowledge, right? And, so to hit up the Peter Davenports or the Stanton Friedmans with everything, they're just going to give you what they know, because right now they are in as much of the dark as everyone else. And so it makes it difficult.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, makes sense. We have, so Dennis, getting back to his son's suicide, his future exploration idea he's got. Dennis Coach is bringing up that Tripp, he's telling Tripp that Bigelow actually has been buying out consciousness groups as well. So if you want to talk about the incarnation aspect, consciousness groups would be the ones to be looking at.
Yes, absolutely.
So that does bring up a little stronger point to the reincarnation side of it. Is it science fiction? Is it fact? nobody's going to know. But again, the man's got billions of dollars. He's got no monetary reason to be doing this. So what's his motivation? Also, if he's buying up experiencers' reports, I can't think of any other reason he would need to know about an abductee. I just don't know.
Well, there's a logical answer to that one. If you're buying up experiencers' reports and you're staying in the view of trying to find a way to get time travel to work, he's basically expecting somewhere an abductee to have information on forward time travel, on the technological aspect of it.
So what would he be looking for with abductees, though?
Because some abductees, even though they come back not remembering their own experience, that information is in the subconscious, and he may be trying to find a way to pull it forward. Clearly he is looking on a very methodical process to find a hidden key, and that's not going to be just laying out on the counter, as it were.
So, if I'm going to drag you into this on the alien side. So, what are the aliens' perceptions of Bigelow and what he's doing with disclosure?
Well, frankly, from their standpoint, he's derailing it. You see, from their perspective, the idea is help to unify the planet so that the human populace can figure out that a global government, which does not mean one ruler, it doesn't mean one country, but a global government is necessary to work together. With him buying up all of the contacts under one roof, that's like having a dictator installed, and they're not about to work with him. Because he's not a benevolent dictator in that aspect.
No. Now, do the aliens or the off-worlders, do they want disclosure? Or are they not? I don't think society is ready for disclosure. You got too many, all aliens are demons. There's no such thing as aliens. Honestly, I think the media, as in the movies.
Well, here's the thing. According to the off-worlders, disclosure has already happened. You guys already know they're here. You already know they're in contact. The fact you're denying it is beside the point.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean you guys as in you personally.
Right.
So, go ahead.
No, because it's going to change the subject. I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, basically it boils down to this. With one guy grabbing all of the information and streamlining every possibility under one roof without letting anybody else have the information, he is crippling the human race from their progression into the intergalactic community, if you will. Because he is virtually single-handedly derailing the idea of a unified front on the part of the humans.
And I completely agree. Because people know MUFON, people know the other UFO agencies out there, and by going to them, their report disappears. Nobody else hears about it. It all funnels into Bigelow. So, yeah, I completely agree with the point. So there is, unless Bigelow comes out, there isn't going to be any disclosure, and Bigelow's not going to say a word.
Exactly. And that's where it becomes a problem. And much as I feel for the general populace and the fact that people don't have a place to report, right? I'm looking at it going, it's doing a whole lot more damage than just that. And you really have to wonder, how people on the whole essentially are letting it happen. But this comes from the idea of you go into a much bigger problem than just Bigelow once you start looking at that.
Now, Bonnie wants to know: will they ever really disclose? And I know we sit here. We do say we've already seen disclosure. That's us in the UFO community, though. But will the public ever see UFO disclosure?
Well, if you look at what John Alexander, Bonnie, said on Spaced Out Radio 2 nights ago, okay, ever since after the Roswell cover-up, they've been disclosing for years. We, as a public, for some reason, have got it in our head that aliens have to land on the White House lawn and say, "Hi, Mr. President, how are you?" Right? Which isn't the case at all. Other countries have admitted to it. Yet, for some reason, the entire first world country aspect on the UFOs says it has to happen at the White House with the U.S. president. And that's not the case at all. As Alexander has stated, besides the weather balloon BS, the United States has never said there is not any UFOs. They have never said that there are. Until recently.
So I'm going to jump in and, because there's evidence of Bigelow's buying up international UFO organizations. And we all also know that pretty much the United States is the only country that has not come out and disclosed what they know. Other countries, Brazil, UK, have started disclosing what they know. Could that be one reason Bigelow's buying them out?
That's a good bet, in my opinion. It certainly gives you a link to it.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion, I mean, you see these small stories leak here and there. You get some of them saying, "Oh yeah, well we kind of looked into this," and I take nothing away from it. I mean, that is, though, even those bits that we get out of it, that's something for all of those people all those years. Everyone was telling them, "Oh, you're full of crap," and finally they get to look back at them and go, "Hey, yeah, see, told you." But do I personally think that you're going to have a big press conference where high-up government official stands at the podium and says directly, "Yes, there's UFOs. Yes, there's aliens. Yes, they've visited. Yes, we've talked to them. Yes, yes, yes." No, I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't see it.
Corey, the naivety of the public, not believing in what just happened with that, whether or not you believe the FA-18 video is irrelevant, because I do believe there is some debate with that, like Preacher was saying, but the fact that we have a member who ran the program coming out publicly stating that I ran a UFO program and there are things out there that we don't know, tells you disclosure happened. Whether it's soft or hard, it doesn't matter. But when you get scientists who are respected, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who then say, "I don't believe any of this crap. I'm not going to believe it until there's an alien sitting across from me at my dinner table." That's where the problem lies, is that people don't want to believe. And when someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson comes out and states that publicly, because he's a respected scientist in the media and in the public eye, people are believing him at face value rather than someone that they don't know, like Luis Elizondo, who ran the friggin' program.
Believe me, I get that. My whole point is that, you know, soft disclosures, they happen, have happened, they just did happen, and those are, to all of us who are in the know or in the belief, that's great. You know, that's wonderful for us. We think it's wonderful. I think it's great. What I'm saying is do I think there's ever going to be straight up, bold, hard-faced, hardcore, cement, hard disclosure in front of us from one of the U.S. government officials like, president, vice president, something like that? No, I don't think so. But I think that there's probably going to be plenty of the soft disclosures. Now, how well they will be taken, I don't know. Obviously, to some aspect, because of those like deGrasse Tyson and a few others, it makes it a little tougher. You know, but I think it's good that we continue to get at least some of the soft disclosure stuff out there, because it continues to advance what we're talking about, what we're doing. But do I think the real hard disclosure will happen? I don't think so. I just don't. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, but they don't need to. They don't need to. That's the problem. Like I said in hour number one, what my sources are telling me is the fact that it isn't about your generation. And Corey, I don't think you're 40 yet, are you?
Yeah, actually, I am 40. I turned 40 in December.
Okay.
Happy belated.
So that late 30s, 40s, 50s, 60 crowd, they don't care about us. But I'll tell you one thing, your kids are going to know all about UFOs by the time they hit our age, and their children or their grandchildren will know all about aliens. It's the gradual first step over decades of work that is starting to come to fruition.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I agree with that totally. You know, my whole point is just for those that are the hardcore, more non-believers, or the ones like deGrasse Tyson and so on and so forth like that, for them, that type of disclosure where they go, God, I was wrong. That type of disclosure is the disclosure I'm talking about that I don't see happening. Now, do I see happening possibly what you're talking about? Yeah, there's an absolute possibility of that. And you know, to go with your sources that are telling you that, yeah, it sounds pretty credible to me for what we've seen thus far.
See, the intriguing part is when you start looking at decades-long disclosure, basically you're talking about societal evolution. It falls outside the category of disclosure and into the category of, well, they arrived. You know, the thing I always find fascinating with the whole concept of disclosure is waiting for a government to tell you, and I'm talking you being the general public, waiting for any government to come out and tell you something that big when they won't tell you about the basic, simple stuff in your own backyard. You know, this is what I keep looking at. You know, and sad to say, but the off-worlders are just not, they're not going to be cooperating with at least not from every indication I've got, they're not going to cooperate with an orchestrated disclosure at the hands of one individual or two individuals. You know, they need it in order for it to work, in order for the human race to be brought into the intergalactic society. They have to do it as a unified group, or at least a semblance of one. And that's certainly not what we're looking at right now.
Well, it seems kind of like it's one of those chicken and the egg things where they won't bring us into the galactic family till we're ready, but it seems to me that if they would bring us in, maybe that would solve some of the problems that are keeping us out.
Not when you look at the other side of it. Let's not forget that the human race has a nearly fatal attraction where it comes to curiosity. And with mankind still amped up on the idea of taking any alien technology and turning it into a weapon, plus the human race's natural tendency to push buttons, and I'm referring to physical buttons, to figure out how things work, if you all of a sudden bring 8 billion people into that kind of environment, you're going to have them setting off bombs, and I do mean by accident. I don't mean going out and doing it intentionally to cause a problem, but by simple curiosity, getting into places that they really shouldn't have gotten and setting off complications that go way outside the human race's capacity to cope.
I want to change up. I want to change up real quick. Do we know that if Bigelow has any connections or ties with CERN or HARP?
That I don't know at this time, Cooper.
I'm just thinking here because, Keith kind of pinged that thought when he talked about us pushing buttons and playing with things we shouldn't play with, essentially. And it makes me wonder if Bigelow's got his hands in, those areas.
Well, I get a kick out of HARP. Number one, he's certainly not going to be looking, he may well have his fingers in it, but he certainly won't be looking at it from a time travel standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, Dennis has a question for you, Keith. Is there something out there that's so horrendous that we, as in mankind, can't handle?
Oh, yeah. There are things out there that go so far beyond what mankind is, and intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, they are so far outside of the general populace's ability to cope with that it would throw mankind into its own, shall we say, retrofitted version of the Dark Ages, because they would look at it and literally they'd run in panic. When you got to remember, when you look at, people are justifiably upset by war. Okay, you watch, 1,000 people get killed and people get upset, which is understandable. You take those same people and put them in an environment where a planet gets torn apart methodically, right? People are not going to be ready to cope with it. They're just not evolved enough. And don't get me wrong, it would be nice if they never had to get that involved. But
so you're talking essentially weapons, weapon kind of technology, or is there other stuff?
Actually, I was referring to animals that eat planets.
Oh my.
Okay, I wasn't referring to a combat situation. I was referring to literally the nature of life out there. This is the thing this is one of the conflicts that mankind has, is that people look at it from somebody deliberately doing it with combat in mind, and that comes naturally because, the human race is a little bit on the aggressive side, but they're also children. But I'm talking about the natural order of things that mankind is so far behind the 8 ball on right now that they won't wrap their brain around it. We talk about communication methods, right? And some of the creatures out there say, and I'll use creatures because they're certainly not humanoid, they communicate in such a way that the literal sound of their voice will tear a body apart if the body is not evolved enough. Okay, if you will, a natural-born sonic impact, that because of the vibratory rate, it just decimates what would be classified as lower life forms. And of course, there is the old saying that goes, thinking something is possible, or the concept that thinking something is possible is one thing. Dealing with it when it's right in front of your face is a whole different ballgame.
Agree.
Because, you think about it, we go back into the theory of relativity that Einstein dropped in everybody's lap. From everything I've been told, the theory that people are working with is E equals mc squared. A simple concept like that, which, by the way, is wrong, the actual theory of relativity is, frankly, 1 plus 1 equals 1, 1 plus 1 equals 3. And it has nothing to do with mathematics, but as a side effect, it will upset the entire concept of the way mankind is looking at things. Now you take a kid, take an adult, or what think they're an adult, in any country, and drop them with no warning into, in any, what people are calling third world country, and drop them with no warning into a completely advanced society beyond what Western society is right now, and they are going to be completely overwhelmed.
Agreed.
Makes sense?
Agreed. Not really, but it does.
No, I think we're more resilient than. I don't think it would be the cataclysmic horror that is brought up. I think we're more resilient than that.
So do most humans.
Until it happens.
Exactly.
Nah, you've got a lot of cases where crisis tends to bring out the best in the human race.
Oh, that I will agree with. The problem that goes hand in hand with that, though, is that when you take crisis, certainly it brings out the best. I mean, this is why when you end up with natural disasters, nobody asks what color you are. But when you take forward, when you push the entire society into a situation that is beyond their ability to wrap their brain around, it's going to be very much like, how do I put this? And don't get me wrong, I do feel that the human race has a lot more to offer than what even it realizes. But when we talk about what's in outer space that mankind is not ready to deal with, it's one thing to watch a movie, like, for instance, that neat little one called Alien from years ago. It's one thing to watch a movie of that. It's another to be staring down the nose at one. And those are mild. The funny part about it is they actually exist, minus the extending jaw. But and
I'll say, dealing with abductees as we do, the crisis and the terror that they go through, just the fact that they're being abducted, is one thing. I've talked to abductees on the phone that, and that's just an abduction. So imagine seeing some of them face to face. Some of them, some of them remember seeing them face to face.
This is exactly what I'm referring to. Is you take a look at that. I mean, the people that all they have is a hint that this is going on and a vague feeling, right? And they get panicky. You know, the numbers that, and you'd know more about this than I do, in all fairness, but the numbers that go right off the deep end, you know, and either their mind snaps or they do worse and punch their own ticket because they can't cope with a simple, and don't get me wrong, abductions are difficult at best, but a simple abduction is one thing. You all of a sudden open up what's out there before they're anywhere near coping with it. I mean, mankind has trouble coping with the idea that you can, you know, that you can take, you know, 3 hours and go from desert terrain into the snow, right? Many people still have trouble wrapping their brain around that. Picture minutes to get to a planet that when you step out on the atmosphere, it tears you apart. And I mean, the atmosphere does. Whereas the off-worlders just walk through it like it's just plain normal.
Yeah. Yeah, and getting back, we'll be talking abduction and training tomorrow, so it's a perfect time to talk about it anyway. But yeah, there are cases where abductees have committed suicide because they can't handle what they're dealing with, and the thought of dealing with it for the rest of their lives. So the trauma is very real, and I think part of the problem is hypnotherapy in some cases where the abductee is actually being taken back to it and has to open those doors and deal with it.
Well, yeah, there's another problem that goes hand in hand with hypnotherapy. Most people, there is the occasional hypnotherapist that's extremely good, but most hypnotherapists have a tendency, and I know this for a fact from dealing with them, of leading the patient or the client, whatever you want to call it, down the wrong road. Like they lead them down the road, and they do it quite innocently. You know, and that's where it becomes a problem.
Right. So, do you think, getting back to disclosure, do you think abduction will ever be in the disclosure topic? Dave?
It'll certainly be a topic, but not in the mainstream part of disclosure, I wouldn't bet.
Right. They'll bring up UFOs, but not the actual abduction side of it.
Well, more to the point, they won't go into the, shall we say, the moral directive of the concept of abductions. You know, it's not a question of that they won't acknowledge it happens, but they certainly won't get into why. At least I wouldn't bet on it.
Right. So what do you think, Dave? Do you think the abduction side will ever come out?
Absolutely. But like I said, I think that's generations away. I think they're going to be treating this with kid gloves so that way they can make disclosure happen on their dime. Okay. And what I mean by that, guys, is let's face it. We all know Roswell happened. We all know that San Augustine happened, okay? And we all know that Kecksburg happened, and there's been other crashes, and that Area 51 is holding a lot of UFO information. We get all that. It's been seen, it's been heard, it's been discussed hundreds of times, thousands of times, all right? But the one thing that we haven't heard is about abduction. And I think the government, over time, will bring it out, but they have a lot to lose right now. On one of your previous shows earlier last year, guys, I stated, and I've stated this on my show as well, that the United States government has hidden this from the public for the most part for decades. Decades.
Right.
We don't know if the Greada Treaty is true. We don't know what they're holding as a result of crashes. Okay? We don't know the technology they have. Imagine if those secrets came out with this. The U.S. government would be up Poop Creek without a paddle. They would. They would have a ton of egg on their face. The way they're doing it right now, where they're segregating UFOs from aliens and alien abduction, is the way they need to do it in order to save face. This is why they will not have to answer questions, excuse me, about the bodies at Roswell. They will not have to answer questions about the bodies at San Augustine. They will not have to answer questions on whether Eisenhower really did meet with extraterrestrials and traded technology for human and animal abduction. Right? We don't have to worry about that.
Right. And you know, and what about Brazil? I mean, you've got, you know, live aliens that were captured by the Brazilian government back in the 70s, I believe it was. Actually, I think it was the 90s. And the Brazilian government gave them to the U.S. government. So, I mean, you know, and we're talking about this tomorrow in training. This is a perfect show tonight because we're doing abduction and UFO investigation at training tomorrow. So,
but there's a lot of those scenarios. Coop, there's a lot of those scenarios. What about J-Rod? What about Valiant Thor? What about
exactly?
What about EA1 and EA2, and all of these other beings that are said to be at Area 51 or at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio or
even
wherever? Right?
Or even Pine Gap.
Pine Gap's another one.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and so what does the government have to lose? Well, one, how can you tell the American people that you don't have any control over national security? You don't have control over the spaces over this country. You know, so that's what they have to lose. And then, of course, like you mentioned, the contract with, I believe it was Eisenhower, if that happened, and they sold the U.S. government, the U.S. population down the river to the aliens. That's what they have to lose, and that's why they've been hiding disclosure for the last numerous decades.
And that's the best assumption I can come up with.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I agree.
That's the best
assumption. Makes sense.
Well, right. and the whole, you know, the government admitted the possibility of UFOs in the 40s when they started Project Blue Book. And, you know, they gave all these bullcrap answers, you know, but there's still, I think it was 12% that were unknowns.
I mean, you guys, you also this goes deeper than aliens, though, and this is what you need to understand. And I know you do, and I'll give you just to give a refresher for the audience. But this goes for the trillions of dollars that have gone missing every number of years. We hear, well, why can't the defense budget account for the trillions of dollars? Where is it? Is there a secret space program? Is there hidden black projects, like Michael Schratt says, that are going on that we don't know about, where we have conquested above supersonic speed, hypersonic speed? Right? I mean, if you believe in the Aurora project, okay, like Michael Schratt does, he'll tell you point blank that the United States has an aircraft that can fly around the world in less than 3 hours.
Is that the TR-3B?
No, it's a different craft.
Okay.
That's the Aurora project. Supposedly it's the replacement for the SR-71.
Yeah, it's like the SR-75 or something like that.
It actually goes up above. It can go so fast because it's actually just outside of the atmospheric envelope. They figured out a way to create some kind of ramjet effect.
Exactly, preacher. Exactly. And if they have the technology to do that, then what else are they hiding? What else are they keeping? And this is all the stuff. I mean, look at 9/11, guys, and I'm not getting into the 9/11 conspiracy here, but the day before, in the departments where the plane hit at the Pentagon, that's where they were having meetings as to the accountants and the auditors were having meetings to try and find the $2.3 trillion that went missing, that they couldn't account for. Where is that money? This is what Michael Schratt is all about, is he is saying, America, wake up. Wake up. They are spending our money ad nauseum, our taxpayer money ad nauseum, and under the Constitution, we have a right to know where that money is gone or going to.
It's going to Black Ops.
Agreed.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that goes back to 2001 when Donald Rumsfeld said, we're missing $2.3 trillion. Don't know where it is.
That's
exactly. And not going to look for it. You know, basically, it's gone. You're SOL. We're in debt up to our asses, and I don't care.
Really glad you brought that up.
But, you know, and we've got soldiers in Iraq they sent us to that their units can't even afford, armor. Their families were buying them body armor off eBay to send to their, sons and daughters. But we have $3.something trillion missing. And we can't even take care of the soldiers they sent to a war?
I was going to buy my oldest daughter the best body armor out there. She said, don't, because if I'm killed in action wearing that body armor, my insurance will be void. You have to use the substandard crap that the military, if they issue it, or your survivors don't get the insurance benefit.
But you got to realize the military. I mean, Coop, as best as anybody, doing 4 tours. You're a peon, and I hate to put it that way. It's beautiful that you're a veteran and that you put your life on the line for your fellow soldiers and the Allied forces. But in reality, they don't give a crap about you. Sorry, I almost let it slip there. Right. They don't give a crap. They don't give a crap about you. But where is the money going? And this is what the American public needs to ask. And you need to hound your government officials about that. Right? It was recent, as in the last year, where they lost another $3 trillion. Right? They can't account for it. Where is that money going? And the belief in the UFO community is that it is going to black operations that has been brought forward from the technologies that they have got in recent years from extraterrestrials. That is the belief. Is it true? We don't know. We don't know. That is the reality of it. But people like Bigelow do. There are people in the United States who know.
Oh, yeah. Bigelow got a big chunk of that money that Harry Reid supposedly put aside for the UFO study. Well, Harry Reid and him are Bigelow are buddies. So, hell yeah. I look more on that as it was a, buddies passing money along, kind of I forgot.
Preacher, that's what I said in the last hour, is when Bigelow got that money, that's when he invested into MUFON. That's when he bought all of these UFO websites and their information. So the question now becomes, did Bigelow spend his own money to get it as a private business, or was he using taxpayer money given to him by Senator Reid and the rest of them to purchase this for the U.S. government? That's the story.
Well, doesn't the timeline overlap enough that it could very well be?
Absolutely.
I mean, I just can't imagine. He's not thinking, I'm sure Robert Bigelow doesn't have this, okay, well, this is the money I got from Harry. This is my pot. I'm sure it was all one, it all went into the same basic account. So, yeah, he used taxpayer money to buy MUFON.
Absolutely he did. Absolutely he did. Right? And that was, go ahead.
And that was like $20 million, wasn't it?
20. Well,
or was it more than that?
They say it was $22 million, but does anybody really believe that on a subject as heavy as UFOs that they're only going to be spending $22 million on that?
No.
$22 million is a safe number to use. All right? It's a safe number to use.
Look, some of those
it was
projects
probably
are
more like 6 point. Go ahead.
Look, some of those projects are still going, even though they say they shut down. They didn't shut down. They're just either changed name or they put it under a black operations. It's still going. It's still getting fed money. There's still people being given a paycheck for it. Probably really good paychecks so that their mouths stay shut, along with the threat of death.
That one works for most people.
And the other bottom line is that the problem that we have nowadays here in the U.S. is that the government has got so many people confused and convinced that the government is the runner of things and not the people, that there isn't enough of us in the know and the understanding that you can tell an official, we want to know where that money is, for them to actually tell us. They thumb their noses at the few of us who want to know that stuff, because there's enough people still voting them into place instead of voting them out that they don't care. They thumb their nose and they tell us just basically where we can stuff it when we want to know something. And even if you put in what's called a FOIA request, which is a legal request for a document that is supposed to be given to any citizen who puts it out there, you will most likely get a document that's redacted. So much stuff blacked out on it, you wouldn't be able to read anything anyways. That is a major problem we have here.
Agree. Totally agree. And I think the bottom line, because I know we're getting down to the last 7 or 8 minutes of the show, but is disclosure going to happen? And I would agree, it's already soft disclosure happening. Are we going to have a hard disclosure where anyone in the White House comes out and talks about it? No. I don't think so, because one man is controlling it all, and that's Bigelow.
Yeah, and let's face it, the off-worlders are just not going to cooperate on handing the whole revelation over to anybody, like over to any one person. If he had just collected it and left the information for other people to have it, it would have been a whole different ballgame. Because they don't care if one person has all the information as long as they're not hoarding it and stopping others.
He's not disseminating anything. Now, the bottom line, folks, pay attention to Bigelow. See who he's bought out, and if you find an organization that he hasn't bought out, that's the one you want to look at, because that's the one that's going to spread the wealth, spread the information. That's the bottom line. Dave?
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one.
But yeah, if they're bought out by Bigelow, then I wouldn't even pay. I wouldn't even time of day.
Well, as we're starting to wind things down, Dave, have you got any final thoughts here as we go?
Yeah, the best thing that I would tell people, guys and girls, is this story isn't going anywhere. Be vigilant with it, because if you have an interest in these topics, it is something where I really strongly believe that you gotta fill in the holes. Yes, it was great the New York Times brought out that article. Yes, it was great that that it's coming to fruition what a lot of people, especially experiencers, have waited for their entire lives. But remember, we're not getting the whole truth. And yes, a little bit is better than none, but we have to make sure that we are open-minded enough to look beyond what we've been told.
And I'm telling you right now, Forest Moon Paranormal works with abductees, deals with UFOs, and we're not bought out. We never will be.
All right.
You got any final thoughts, Markham?
Yeah, Mr. Markham, you got thoughts?
Well, I don't think it's all Bigelow. I really don't. I think he's got a piece of it, obviously, but I think more is coming. I'll just say it that I think, the camel's got its nose to the tent flap, and I think it's going to work its way in. Just be patient and just not. I know we're all hungry for it, but I think if we just chill out and let it unfold, we're going to get our answers. I think in the next couple of years we'll have our disclosure that we're looking for.
Keith, you got any final thoughts here as we start winding down here?
Yeah. Just if you're, number one, I will absolutely say, if you're looking for information, absolutely turn to Forest Moon. But don't be afraid to talk to other people at the same time, because it's necessary for everybody to find out what's going on, not just one end. But, let's face it, if you're looking for the integrity, and some people tell me I'm biased, that doesn't happen, but absolutely talk to you guys, because at least you've got the rounded group to deal with it.
Totally agree. And real quick, if you're local, don't forget, tomorrow training at Annie's Pizza at 2 p.m., and we'll talk more about UFOs and abduction. So thank you for listening tonight, folks. Awesome show. Corey, take us home.
Okay, as we kind of start to wind things down here just a little bit, I would like to thank our panel, Eric Markham, our Forest Moon Paranormal Scientist, our Keith Andrews, our astrologer and alien specialist, and Dave Scott of Spaced Out Radio. Thank you guys very much for coming on tonight. It's been a wonderful show. Join us next Saturday at midnight Pacific Standard Time as we have our monthly roundtable, where we'll be discussing pretty much anything under the sun for paranormal that's gone on probably in the last month. Join us next Saturday at midnight Pacific Standard Time on Spreaker.com, SpacedOutRadio.com, and The Fringe FM. And now you can hear us Wednesdays from 10 a.m. till noon on KSVU 90.1 on your FM dial. I would like to thank all of our listeners, because without you, there is no S4. Good night, and remember, keep your eyes to the skies.